Hi automotive enthusiasts, welcome to Cam and Crank, where today we dive deep into the motorcycle that didn't just roll onto the scene, but detonated an entire era. Honda's CB750, the machine that made the word superbike part of motorcycling's permanent vocabulary. Imagine the late 1960s. The world's two-wheel stage was dominated by temperamental British twins, heavy American cruisers, and a handful of exotic European racers. Performance was exciting but expensive. Reliability was a gamble, and big power was reserved for those with patience for constant maintenance or a fat wallet. Then in 1969, Honda, a company known in the US mostly for small, friendly commuter bikes, dropped a four-cylinder thunderbolt that shattered expectations. The CB750 combined 67 horsepower, a front disc brake, an electric starter, and a silky inline-four engine, all wrapped in a package priced within reach of the average rider. This wasn't just another model. It was a pivot point for an entire industry, a moment when advanced engineering leapt from the racetrack and the lab onto Main Street, changing what riders thought was possible and forcing every rival to rethink their future. Today on Cam and Crank, we're going to unpack how a single motorcycle upended decades of dominance, reshaped global competition, and redefined what performance could mean for everyday motorcyclists. Over the next 25 minutes, you'll ride through three intertwined arcs: the cultural tension of a Japanese upstart challenging old-world craftsmanship, the bold engineering decisions that put Formula One thinking into a street bike, and the lasting consequences that echo through modern sport bikes, custom culture, and even the language riders use today. You'll discover that the CB750 wasn't just faster or smoother, but that it captured the zeitgeist of a world ready for change, a world of moon landings, growing youth rebellion, and the first inklings of a truly global marketplace. And as we peel back each layer, you'll see why magazines of the era declared it the bike of the century, and why its blueprint still influences machines rolling off production lines more than half a century later. So settle in, because what starts as a single Honda unveiling in 1969 will unfold into a story about innovation, risk, and a cultural earthquake whose aftershocks still shake motorcycling today. This is the story of the CB750, the motorcycle that invented the term superbike, and the revolution it set roaring down every open road. Micro story: picture a smoky cafe racer hangout in London. 1968, Triumph and BSA twins lined up like chrome jewelry. Riders swapping stories of oil leaks and tuning quirks. Their culture built on wrenching as much as riding. Across the Atlantic, Harley-Davidson's heavyweight cruisers rumbled through small-town parades, while Honda's name mostly meant polite little bikes that wouldn't scare your grandmother. Into this world stepped whispers of a four-cylinder project, a rumor dismissed by many as fantasy. After all, no one had mass-produced an inline-four street bike that could remain affordable or reliable. Those whispers would become a thunderclap. Micro story. In Honda's headquarters, Soichiro Honda himself pushed his engineers. Why shouldn't the company that had conquered racing circuits with high-revving fours bring that tech to the street? The team borrowed lessons from Formula One camshafts and Grand Prix exhaust tuning. But the challenge was building it cheaply and durably enough for a weekend rider. Their gamble was as audacious as any moonshot. If they failed, the CB750 could sink Honda's reputation in America, but if they succeeded, they'd change everything. Context digest. Japanese manufacturers in the 1960s were eager to expand beyond small displacement commuters. Yamaha and Kawasaki were eyeing two-stroke screamers, but none dared to produce a large displacement four-stroke inline-four for the masses. British firms had stagnated technologically. Still using drum brakes and separate gearboxes, American brands banked on heritage and brand loyalty rather than innovation. This vacuum created the perfect storm for disruption. Reflection bridge. It's easy now to see the CB750's triumph as inevitable, but at the time, skepticism outweighed belief. That tension would define its debut. Mini-Beat. A factory in Hamamatsu began building prototype engines with sand-cast cases, each test mule torn down after grueling runs to ensure oil passages, bearings, and valve springs could handle sustained high RPM. Mini-Beat. Early prototypes clocked over 120 mph, shocking test riders accustomed to wobbly frames and fading brakes. The engineers knew power meant nothing if the chassis or brakes failed, so they pioneered a front disc brake, unheard of on a production street bike. Micro story: A scene at the 1969 Tokyo show. Honda lifts the cover, and journalists gasp at the CB750's polished 4x4 pipes glinting under the lights. Skeptics dismiss it as a flashy concept that will never reach customers at the promised 1,495. But when production models start shipping, that disbelief curdles into alarm across rival boardrooms. Context digest. Honda's strategy was ruthless efficiency. Use a transverse inline-four for balance, a single overhead cam for cost control, and an electric starter to broaden appeal. Mass production meant consistent quality, a stark contrast to the hand-assembled unpredictability of many British machines. By keeping costs low and reliability high, Honda wasn't just selling speed, it was selling peace of mind. Mini-Beat, motorcycle magazines in 1969, tested the CB750 against traditional British twins. The Honda didn't just win on performance. It started every time, didn't drip oil, and stopped confidently. Testers raved that it felt as if a race bike had been domesticated without losing its fangs. Reflection bridge. With those first rave reviews, the motorcycle world sensed a paradigm shift. What was once boutique-level performance had just gone mainstream. Mini-Beat, Honda's US dealerships, accustomed to small bikes for commuters and students, were suddenly flooded with enthusiasts hungry for the CB750. Some dealers even charged premiums over MSRP because demand outstripped supply. A new kind of customer walked through the door. Riders who wanted speed, refinement, and reliability in one package. Microstory. In a cramped British factory office, a Triumph executive stares at sales charts as CB750 orders explode. Their own big bikes suddenly look dated. And scrambling engineers are told to develop a triple-cylinder Trident to catch up. But it's too little. Too late. The CB750 has already redefined the playing field, and the British motorcycle industry's decline accelerates. Context digest. The CB750's influence didn't stop at Britain. Harley-Davidson faced pressure to modernize. Kawasaki rushed the Z1 superbike project, and Suzuki and Yamaha fast-tracked larger fours. In one stroke, Honda had forced an entire industry to evolve or perish. Mini-Beat, riders who once worshipped at the altar of British craftsmanship began embracing Japanese engineering without shame. Motorcycle clubs shifted loyalties, and racing grids began filling with CB750-based specials, foreshadowing the superbike wars of the 1970s. Mini-Beat. The CB750's accessible performance democratized speed. For the first time, a weekend hobbyist could line up at a drag strip and match times once reserved for professional racers. This democratization would spark custom movements like the cafe racer revival and the proto-chopper scene. Mini-Beat. Honda didn't just sell bikes. It sold a vision of modernity, of a future where anyone could harness technology once reserved for the elite. That vision carried social weight. The CB750 became an icon not only of motorcycling, but of an era defined by technological optimism. Mini-Beat. Even small details, like the 4x4 exhaust note, became cultural signatures, inspiring generations of tuners and builders to chase that perfect combination of sound and performance. Transition line. And just as the CB750's arrival shocked the world, the ripple effects it triggered would deepen, reshaping racing, customization, and the very idea of what a superbike should be, which leads us into the next layer of its impact. Micro-story. Imagine a sun-baked California drag strip in 1971. A rider on a stock CB750 pulls up next to a heavily modified British twin, the crowd expecting the British bike to dominate. When the lights flash green, the Honda rockets ahead smoothly, crossing the line faster and cleaner, leaving onlookers stunned. That moment repeats at tracks and back roads across the country, proving that cutting-edge performance no longer belonged only to race teams or custom shops. Mini-Beat. The AMA noticed these performances and soon introduced new racing categories tailored to production-based superbikes. The CB750 dominated early races, forcing regulators to rethink class structures and encouraging manufacturers to build faster, more advanced street bikes to compete. Context digest. Racing wasn't just about trophies. It was free advertising, and Honda leveraged every win to cement its reputation in America. Rivals like Kawasaki answered with the Z1, a 903cc powerhouse, sparking a horsepower arms race that would define the decade. The term superbike itself gained currency as magazines sought a label for this new breed of high-performance street-legal machines. Reflection bridge. The CB750's triumph on the track validated Honda's gamble, but it also set in motion a competitive frenzy that would raise stakes far beyond the showroom. Mini beat. Custom builders began chopping and modifying CB750s, birthing a new wave of American choppers and cafe racers. The CB750's reliable platform made it a favorite canvas, leading to iconic builds that blurred the line between street and art. Micro story. In a dusty Midwestern garage, a young builder strips down a used CB750, fabricates a rigid frame and stretches the forks, creating one of the earliest Honda-powered choppers. Local riders, used to Harley customs, are shocked by the smooth power and screaming redline. Soon, Honda 4s are appearing in custom magazines, reshaping what a chopper can be. Mini beat. Across the ocean, endurance racers in Europe adopt CB750s for long-distance events. Impressed by their durability, the bike proves it can sustain high speeds for hours without catastrophic failure, earning respect even from skeptics who once dismissed Japanese machines. Context digest. By the mid-1970s, the CB750 had become a global phenomenon. Its sales inspired new dealerships, expanded rider demographics, and introduced countless enthusiasts to motorcycling. Honda's success pressured traditional brands to modernize their production techniques, materials, and marketing approaches. Even automakers studied Honda's quality control systems to learn how such consistency was achieved. Micro story. Picture a small-town American father and son riding together. The father once swore by British bikes, but now trusts a CB750 for cross-country trips. The son grows up associating reliability and excitement with Japanese engineering. That generational shift in perception would influence buying habits for decades. Mini beat. Honda's marketing subtly framed the CB750 as a bridge between cultures. High-tech precision from Japan meeting the open-road dreams of America. That narrative resonated during a time when global trade and cultural exchange were becoming central to the economy and lifestyle. Reflection bridge. But as the CB750 transformed motorcycling's present, it also reshaped its future, setting expectations for what every superbike must deliver, a standard still evident in modern sport bikes. Mini beat. The later shift to DOHC, dual overhead cam engines, and larger displacements in successor models was a direct response to competitors catching up. Yet even as technology marched on, the original CB750's combination of accessibility and innovation remained unmatched in its cultural impact. Context digest. By the late 1970s, motorcycle magazines were using pre-CB750 and post-CB750 as shorthand for eras of motorcycling. Collectors began preserving early sand-cast models, aware that these machines represented a watershed moment. The CB750 wasn't just a product. It had become a historical milestone studied by engineers and celebrated by riders. Mini beat. Vintage racing leagues and modern custom shops still feature CB750s, treating them as living history. The aftermarket for parts, restorations, and performance upgrades thrives more than 50 years later, a testament to the bike's enduring relevance. Micro story. At a contemporary bike meet, a gleaming restored CB750 draws a crowd of younger riders who recognize its silhouette from old photos and museum exhibits. They marvel that something introduced decades before their birth still commands awe. It's proof that the CB750's story isn't nostalgia alone. It's an ongoing conversation between generations of riders. Mini beat. Honda's willingness to take risks with the CB750 also influenced its automotive division, reinforcing a culture of innovation that would carry into cars like the Civic and Accord. The philosophy of offering advanced engineering at a fair price became a core brand identity. Mini beat. Even non-riders know the CB750 indirectly. The term superbike entered pop culture, television scripts, and everyday language, signaling speed and modernity. Its influence reaches far beyond the motorcycle community. Mini beat. For modern manufacturers, every new performance motorcycle release is measured against a benchmark that Honda set over half a century ago. The CB750's DNA can be traced through today's leader-class sport bikes, naked bikes, and even some adventure machines. Transition line, all of these ripples on racetracks and garages, across continents, set the stage for the CB750's final, lasting impact, a legacy that continues to shape how we think about motorcycling and innovation itself. Micro-story. Picture a contemporary motorcycle design lab in California. Engineers sketch next-generation electric superbikes while a framed photo of a 1969 CB750 hangs on the wall. They study it not as nostalgia but as a blueprint. Proof that radical innovation, executed with precision and accessibility, can change an entire industry overnight. That inspiration guides their approach to performance and usability. Mini-Beat, the CB750's philosophy, advanced tech made attainable, echoes in modern bikes like Honda's own CB1000R or competitors. Litter class offerings, even as power figures soar past 200 horsepower, the emphasis on reliability and user-friendliness traces back to that first superbike. Context digest. Museums from Tokyo to Birmingham prominently display CB750s alongside racing legends and cultural artifacts. They're presented not merely as motorcycles, but as cultural milestones that intersected with social change, global economics, and engineering progress. The CB750 helped normalize Japanese dominance in motorsport and consumer vehicles, reshaping perceptions worldwide. Reflection Bridge. Its legacy isn't frozen in the past. It's active in every decision manufacturers make about balancing innovation, cost, and rider trust. Mini-Beat. Modern custom builders still prize CB750s for cafe racer conversions or high-end resto mods. These projects celebrate the bike's enduring aesthetics and mechanical simplicity, keeping its legend alive among new generations of enthusiasts. Micro-story. At a vintage rally in the American Midwest, a young rider in their 20s rolls up on a freshly restored CB750 sandcast model. Older riders nod with respect. Recounting their own memories of the bike's debut, the gathering becomes a living bridge between eras, proving that the CB750's appeal transcends time and technology. Mini-Beat. Collectors today pay premium prices for early sandcast CB750s, viewing them as the holy grail of classic Hondas. Their value underscores how a mass-produced machine transformed into a cherished artifact through its cultural weight. Context digest. The term superbike now anchors entire racing series, dealership marketing strategies, and enthusiast communities. It shapes expectations. A superbike must be fast, reliable, and accessible. Not just a fragile trophy, this standard originated with Honda's CB750, which combined everyday usability with performance previously found only on track bikes. Micro-story. Consider the ripple effect on global manufacturing. The CB750 forced European and American companies to modernize assembly lines, adopt quality control methodologies, and invest in R&D. That industrial shift improved not just motorcycles, but countless other products as manufacturers borrowed Honda's approach. Mini-Beat. The CB750 also played a subtle role in cultural diplomacy. In the wake of post-war tensions, it showcased Japanese craftsmanship as forward-looking and trustworthy, helping to soften perceptions in Western markets. Mini-Beat. Today's retro-inspired bikes, from Triumph's modern Bonneville's to Kawasaki's Z900 RS, exist partly because the CB750 set a benchmark that others seek to honor or surpass. Its influence stretches even to electric motorcycles aiming to balance futuristic tech with user-friendly design. Reflection Bridge. To understand modern motorcycling culture, you can't just look at today's machines. You must trace the lineage back to that 1969 Honda, the bike that redefined possibility. Mini-Beat. Restoration clubs, online forums, and YouTube channels thrive on CB750 content, proving the bike's story still captivates. Its role in movies, music videos, and art installations keeps its silhouette etched into popular culture. Micro-story. A Hollywood prop master selects a CB750 for a period film set in the 1970s. Even on screen, it instantly communicates era, attitude, and authenticity. The audience, knowingly or not, feels the bike's iconic status. Mini-Beat. Engineers developing today's advanced rider aids, traction control, ABS, ride-by-wire throttles, acknowledge the CB750 as the start of a lineage where innovation serves the rider rather than intimidates them. The superbike concept has always been about empowerment, not exclusivity. Context digest. The CB750's story underscores a larger truth about automotive history. Breakthrough products emerge when risk, timing, and vision align. Honda's risk to build a big four-cylinder for ordinary riders met a moment when the world was hungry for progress and adventure. The CB750 was the perfect answer at the perfect time. Mini beat, even as technology advances, riders still crave the visceral connection the CB750 offered. The growl of four pipes, the feel of smooth acceleration, the trust that the bike would bring them home. This emotional dimension keeps its legend vibrant. Mini beat, future superbikes, whether powered by gasoline, electricity, or hydrogen, owe a debt to the CB750's blend of daring and practicality. Its DNA persists, ensuring that every groundbreaking bike carries a trace of Honda's original revolution. Microstory. Picture the final scene of a coastal ride at sunset. A vintage CB750 cruises past modern machines, its rider grinning at the knowledge that this unassuming classic once changed the world. Every bike it passes is, in some way, its descendant. That quiet, rolling testament is the CB750's ultimate victory. Transition line. And as the echoes of that victory continue, the story comes full circle. Understanding the CB750 is understanding the roots of modern motorcycling and the enduring power of innovation made accessible. Thanks for staying with us through this journey, automotive enthusiasts. The CB750's story isn't just about an engine configuration or a price tag. It's about a moment when the motorcycle world pivoted, and the future arrived seemingly overnight. We began with a 1969 unveiling that shocked a skeptical industry, traced the ripple effects that transformed racing and custom culture, and arrived at a legacy that still shapes every superbike on the market. Along the way, we saw how Honda's calculated risk upended old hierarchies, forced competitors to evolve, and redefined what riders could expect from performance and reliability. The CB750 democratized speed, turned advanced engineering into a mass-market reality, and proved that innovation can win hearts as well as races. Today, its silhouette is instantly recognizable, its exhaust note remembered fondly by those who rode it, and its influence embedded in the DNA of modern motorcycles. Museums honor it, collectors treasure it, and engineers still study it, not as a relic but as a living standard. The superbike era owes its very name to this machine, and that era continues to evolve. Whether in roaring inline-fours, V-twins, or silent electric powertrains, when you see a cutting-edge sport bike tearing down a straightaway or a custom cafe racer carving a canyon, you're witnessing echoes of the CB750's revolution. That's the power of a single idea executed brilliantly. It doesn't fade with time. It becomes the foundation for everything that follows. So as we close this exploration, let's remember that the road ahead for motorcycling, however futuristic it may seem, is still paved by the thunder of a 1969 Honda four-cylinder. Thanks for riding with us on Cam and Crank. See you next time, automotive enthusiasts.